a tech billionaire suspects something is wrong at home. Rather than confront the truth directly, he engineers an elaborate deception. He fakes a business trip, fires his driver, and returns in disguise as a chauffeur. His mission: observe how his maid treats his baby. More importantly, to see if his elegant fiancée is truly the loving mother she pretends to be. For days, he watches from the shadows, collecting evidence. Then, in a moment of shocking clarity inside the garage, his fiancée orders the maid to place his crying infant inside the open trunk of the car. He can no longer stay silent. What follows will dismantle everything he thought he knew. Nicholas Chen built his fortune in technology. At 35, he had everything: a sprawling mansion, a successful empire, and a beautiful son named Leo, born to a woman he once loved. Then came Camilla. She entered his life like a perfectly composed photograph, elegant, charming, and composed. She spoke about family values and building a future together. Nicholas found himself drawn to her grace, her apparent warmth toward Leo, and the promise of something whole. But his nanny, Anna, saw something different. "I need to talk to you," Anna said one evening, her tone careful but urgent. "I've noticed things with Camilla. The way she handles Leo when you're not around. It concerns me." Anna described moments: delays in feeding despite Leo's cries, dismissive comments about baby sounds interrupting her time, a coldness that shifted to warmth the moment Nicholas approached. Anna spoke with specificity, citing times and dates, speaking like someone whose observations came from genuine worry, not exaggeration. Nicholas listened but didn't want to believe it. Camilla had always seemed devoted. To accept Anna's warnings meant accepting that the woman he'd chosen to share his future with was not who he thought. "Maybe you're misinterpreting things," he said gently. "Camilla's just adjusting to motherhood." But doubt had taken root. That night, Nicholas called his closest friend and lawyer, Renato, and laid out the conflict. Renato listened carefully, then offered a solution: install hidden cameras, gather irrefutable evidence, and act only once the truth was documented. Nicholas rejected it immediately. The idea of surveilling Camilla felt wrong, a violation that would damage their relationship regardless of what the footage showed. Instead, he conceived a different plan, one that required him to become someone else. Nicholas announced an international business trip, fabricated flights, fake meetings, emails sent on his behalf. He made it convincing because authenticity was essential. Then he approached his current driver and offered generous severance with one condition: complete discretion. Next came the transformation. Nicholas altered his appearance methodically: shorter hair, facial hair, different posture, aged clothing, a new voice pattern. He applied for work through a private car company using an assumed name. The company vetted him quickly, asking no difficult questions. Camilla, unaware of any deception, approved the hire of the new driver without inspection. On the first morning, Nicholas returned to his own mansion behind the wheel of a black sedan, a stranger in his own home. His heart raced as he opened the car door, aware that his son sat yards away, unaware that his father had become invisible. Anna was the first to acknowledge him. She greeted him politely, but with mild curiosity, not quite seeing him, seeing instead a hired uniform and professional demeanor. Camilla appeared briefly, glanced at him with indifference, and issued instructions in a tone that made clear she viewed him as furniture. Leo began to cry softly. Nicholas heard his son's voice and felt the full weight of his decision. He couldn't respond, couldn't comfort, couldn't be the father in that moment. The isolation of it struck him like a physical blow, but he pushed the emotion aside. He was there to see, not to feel. Nicholas existed in the spaces between: the garage, the driver's waiting area, the car's front seat. He moved through his own house as an outsider, greeting only when spoken to, observing always. What he saw confirmed Anna's concerns with painful clarity. Camilla would hand Leo to Anna with minimal warmth, then disappear upstairs with the instruction that the baby be kept quiet. When Leo cried during Camilla's phone calls or dress fittings, she didn't rush to soothe him. Instead, she sighed with visible frustration, as though his distress was an inconvenience she hadn't budgeted for. Anna, by contrast, was constant. She followed feeding schedules with precision, checked the pediatrician's notes repeatedly, prepared meals with careful measurement, and held Leo during every moment of discomfort. She never complained, never rested, never prioritized herself. Nicholas began to notice patterns. Camilla's attention spiked only when visitors arrived, moments when she could be photographed holding Leo, her face warm and maternal. Then, once people left, she'd hand him back to Anna without acknowledgement and retreat to her world of social plans and personal time. Days passed. Nicholas documented mental notes, filed observations away, and waited for something undeniable. A Saturday morning provided it. Camilla announced she had back-to-back appointments, a wedding dress fitting and a meeting with decorators. She wanted the car available all day, ready to transport her without delays. Her tone made clear this was non-negotiable. Anna prepared Leo meticulously, packing bottles, diapers, extra clothes, a towel, pacifier. She didn't ask for help, she simply did what was necessary. Nicholas watched her efficiency, her never-resting attention to detail. Camilla appeared briefly, checked her reflection, and got in the car without looking at her son. During the drive, Leo began to cry, soft at first, then insistent. Camilla frowned, sighed audibly, and complained that children made it impossible to manage important commitments. She didn't turn to look at him. She didn't offer comfort. She simply wanted the noise to stop. Anna rocked the car seat gently, gave Leo his pacifier, whispered softly. Nicholas heard every word she spoke, every breath she took in service of the baby. At the atelier, Camilla gave her final instruction before leaving. Don't park nearby. Keep driving. The baby needed to sleep, and motion would help. She would call when ready. Then she was gone. For the next 4 hours, Nicholas drove in loops around the same streets while Anna sat in the back seat, managing Leo alone. She changed his diaper using the seat as a table, gave him bottles, hummed softly, adjusted blankets. She never complained. She didn't request a break or demand assistance. She simply did what was required with the same patient care she'd shown since the beginning. Nicholas felt exhaustion settling into his body, exhaustion born of watching someone labor without respite while the person who'd given birth to the child remained indifferent inside a bridal shop. When Camilla finally called, hours later, she didn't ask about Leo's condition. She didn't inquire whether he'd eaten or slept well. She simply gave the next address. 3 days later, Camilla mentioned another outing, a brief visit to a friend's gated community. Early departure, no stroller, just a quick stop at the entrance. Nicholas, still in character, reminded her that the infant car seat was required by law. Camilla's irritation was palpable, but she relented. The visit was indeed brief. Camilla left the car quickly, while Anna stayed in the back with Leo, who became increasingly fussy as the ride home progressed. When they reached the mansion's garage, Leo's crying intensified. His cries bounced off concrete walls and reverberated through the space. Camilla stepped out of the car first, her face taut with frustration. Rather than attend to her son, she walked directly to the trunk. She opened it, examined the empty interior, and made a decision that would be impossible to reverse. "The trunk is quiet and dark," she said to Anna with cold certainty. "He'll calm down faster in there. I have urgent calls to make. Place him inside." Anna froze. Her expression cycled through confusion, discomfort, and fear. Camilla repeated the instruction more sharply. Nicholas felt something fracture inside him. Every instinct screamed to move, to act, to stop this. But habit, The driver's passivity, the observer's caution, kept him still. He watched as Anna, paralyzed by conflicting loyalties and genuine fear of losing her job, reluctantly moved toward the trunk with the crying baby. That was when Nicholas moved. He stepped forward and caught the trunk's edge before Camilla could lower it further. His voice was calm, but carried unmistakable firmness. The trunk isn't safe for an infant. Ventilation systems can fail. Temperature can rise. This isn't an appropriate place for a child. Camilla turned on him with raw fury. You're just the driver. You have no authority here. Do you understand? Nicholas didn't move. He held the trunk open, repeating that the space wasn't designed for a baby and could become dangerous. Camilla threatened to call the agency and have him removed. Anna stood frozen, holding the crying baby, caught between competing demands. Nicholas gave Anna a subtle shake of his head, a silent signal not to comply. The standoff lasted only seconds before Nicholas made his decision. He removed his cap slowly, deliberately, then took off his sunglasses. Recognition crashed across Camilla's face like a wave. Her voice changed immediately, confusion replacing anger. What are you? Why aren't you abroad? Nicholas kept his posture steady, no longer performing. I never left, he said quietly. I came back disguised because I needed to see the truth with my own eyes. He continued without pause, his voice steady and precise. I heard every concern Anna raised, every warning. I watched how you treat Leo when you think no one important is observing. I saw the difference between who you are in public and who you are in private. Camilla opened her mouth to respond, but Nicholas continued, laying out the facts. He described the patterns, the cold handoffs to Anna, the irritation at Leo's crying, the strategic warmth for visitors, the indifference the moment people left. He recounted the long drive, where she didn't ask about her child's condition, the instruction to keep him quiet because she needed silence, and now this, attempting to place an infant in a car trunk because his crying was inconvenient. No, Camilla said, trying to rewrite the moment. That was just a joke, a silly idea. I would never... Stop, Nicholas interrupted. The trunk wasn't a joke. Your expressions, your words, your actions, they were all real. And I've seen enough. A security guard, drawn by the raised voices, appeared in the garage doorway. Nicholas remained composed, every trace of the accommodating driver erased. He instructed the guard to escort Camilla inside while he remained with Anna and Leo. Inside the main living room, Renato arrived within minutes, called by Nicholas as the situation was unfolding. He carried a folder filled with documents prepared months earlier, standing ready for exactly this possibility. With everyone assembled, Nicholas, Camilla, Anna holding Leo, the security guard and Renato, Nicholas recounted the events with precise detail. He described the garage scene without embellishment, letting facts speak louder than emotion. Camilla attempted denial, claiming everything was exaggerated, that she was being unfairly portrayed, that the trunk was never a real threat. Nicholas didn't argue. He simply waited for her explanations to collapse under their own weakness. Renato then opened his folder and placed documents on the table one by one. The first dissolved their engagement, ending all legal obligations. The second revoked all powers of attorney. The third suspended all credit cards and financial access linked to her name. The security cameras in the garage recorded the entire incident, Renato stated calmly. If necessary, those recordings can be included in any legal proceedings, but these documents represent the immediate consequences of what occurred. Camilla's face went pale. She realized there was no explanation that would work, no reframing that would succeed. The reality was documented, witnessed, and immutable. Nicholas's voice, when he finally spoke again, carried no anger, only certainty. My priority is Leo's safety. What happened cannot be ignored or justified. You will gather your personal belongings. Security will escort you from the property. These decisions are final. As the security guard escorted Camilla upstairs to collect her things, the garage fell quiet. Anna stood holding Leo, who had finally stopped crying and was beginning to calm. Nicholas turned to her. "Thank you," he said simply, "for everything, for protecting him when no one else would, for speaking up even when I didn't listen immediately." Anna nodded, emotion evident in her eyes, but her voice steady. "He needed someone. I couldn't look away." Within an hour, Camilla had departed the property. The gates closed behind her, and the house settled into a new silence. Not the tense quiet of hidden truths, but the gentle quiet of restored safety. Nicholas spent the rest of the day with Anna and Leo. He asked her to stay, increased her salary significantly, adjusted her hours, and hired a legitimate driver to handle transportation. He wanted to restructure the household so that Anna would never again carry the burden of protection alone. That evening, as the house grew dark and quiet, Nicholas sat with Leo, sleeping in his arms. He felt the weight of his son, light, vulnerable, entirely dependent on the choices of those around him. Anna passed through the living room, checking that everything was in order before retiring to her own room. She smiled softly when she saw Nicholas holding the baby, and Nicholas understood in that moment something he should have grasped much earlier. Love isn't grand gestures or beautiful words. Love is someone staying awake for 4 hours in a moving car, never complaining. Love is preparing bottles with precision, checking instructions repeatedly, moving through endless days of care without recognition. Love is placing your own needs last, because a child's safety comes first. He had almost chosen someone who saw his son as an inconvenience. Instead, he had kept someone who saw him as everything. The days that followed established new rhythms. Nicholas remained close to Leo, learning the small rituals of fatherhood, proper feeding techniques, sleep schedules, the way his son's eyes closed when held a certain way. He moved through the house not as a man divided between business and family, but as someone present in both. Anna continued her work with renewed confidence, no longer watching over her shoulder, no longer tensing at sounds in other rooms. The household ran smoothly because it was finally built on honesty and shared purpose, rather than hidden observation and silent fear. As the weeks passed and Leo grew slightly stronger, Nicholas thought often about the moment in the garage, that terrible, clarifying instant when the truth became impossible to deny. He had wanted to believe the best about Camilla. That impulse toward faith was human. But he had also found the courage to see clearly when belief became dangerous. One evening, watching Anna sing softly to Leo as she prepared him for sleep, Nicholas understood that trust wasn't about blind acceptance. Trust was about witnessing someone's actions over time, seeing their choices when no one important was watching, and choosing to believe in the character those choices revealed. Anna had passed that test completely, and he had almost failed his son by not listening sooner. He would never make that mistake again.